Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our general fund extravaganza today. We've got a lot on the agenda. I hope to be able to get through it all. There's going to be some missteps, I'm sure, at some point, and we're going to try to put as many combined or accommodate as many as we can, so bear with us. To get started, clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Senator Albritton, Senator Chambliss, Senator Beasley, Senator Coleman, Senator Coleman-Madison, Senator Elliott,
Here.
Senator Gavan, Senator Jones, Senator Kelly, Senator Livingston, Senator Orr, Senator Price, Senator Shonut, Senator Stewart, Senator Stutz, Senator Weaver.
We have a quorum. Excellent. Then let's get started. Call the first bill. Senator Orr, how are you today?
Oh, lovely, Mr. Chairman. I think there's a substitute. Has it been circulated? Everybody got it? Okay, let me tell you what the substitute does. This is originally filed. You had $5 million coming from Road and Bridge. The substitute says, no, $2 million to be appropriated by the general fund. And this is for inland ports. I've got a whole file here. And to help the Port of Mobile get more volume through it. And also, by doing that, we will develop inland ports up throughout this state to help get more commerce, the Port of Mobile, but also get truck traffic off the highways if we use our extensive waterway network that we have in the state. So help with traffic congestion on interstates like 65 that we hear a lot about. So that being said, I would move adoption of the substitute, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? None? All right, let's call the long roll on adopting the sub.
Senator Albritton,
Aye.
Senator Chambliss, Senator Beasley, Senator Coleman, Senator Coleman-Madison, Senator Elliott, Senator Gavan, Senator Jones, Senator Kelly, Senator Livingston, Senator Orr,
Aye.
Senator Price, Senator Shonut, Senator Stewart, Senator Stutz, Senator Weaver.
The sub has been adopted. We're now on the substitute as the bill.
And let me say one more thing, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, and is this also includes intermodal facilities. So if you've got an intermodal, I know Montgomery has one that's kind of new, and Birmingham has one, et cetera. So it includes those. Again, it will help in that situation get train, auto traffic or truck traffic off the interstates and put them on the rail and to an intermodal, then offload. And of course, the reverse works as we export goods and go down to the port for export as well. So north and south it runs. So
we have a motion and a second. We have a comment?
Question, if I may. And, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Senator Orr, the original bill, and you'll have to forgive me, I'm just reading the sub, but it had a provision in it that said that the Alabama State Port Authority, including its inland ports, was expressly exempt from the purview of this article. I don't see that in the sub.
Yeah,
Has that been removed as well?
The reason for that is you go to line 77, and the LSA drafter said it was redundant and not needed.
Oh, yes, I see where it is. I'm glad I asked. It says it specifically excludes the Port of Mobile on line 7.
Yeah, they wouldn't be eligible to receive this. Everybody upstream, they, in my opinion, get a lot of support in other ways.
Well, if I may.
Certainly, go ahead.
I would also say that they do get a lot of support, and they execute very well for the state of Alabama, and they have experience that extends upstream as well. I know a number of us saw a presentation from them the other day about intermodal facilities that they were active in constructing and operating, and I was just wondering why we would specifically exclude a very successful entity from this program.
Again, the thinking was they, being an entity of the state, get a lot of support in other ways. And this is all going to help the Port of Mobile by getting imports, exports all coming through up and down.
If I might,
$2 million.
this is more of a focus to be able to open up our waterways for actual transport. Part of our problem with not getting waterways is because we can't get dredging done and movement along. This is a means to focus that the state is intent on using these waterways as a major transportation artery to develop along this line. That's what we're doing. 2 million is not a lot of money to make this work, but it is a means to indicate and to show that we're moving forward with this development of infrastructure that we already have. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any objection to using previous role? If not, then Bill's given a favorable report. Thank you. Let's call the next bill. We're still gonna wait? All right, we're gonna skip that one because we're waiting for a substitute to be coming in. Is that right, Senator? Okay. Call the next one then.
SB 297, Senator Melson.
Senator Melson.
There we go. I think that's working now.
It is.
This bill simply does one thing, and it exempts capital gains and losses on precious metal bullion from Alabama tax. We've already removed the sales tax from it. Gold, silver, platinum, palladium, and in the form of gold bars or rounds would qualify as bullion and be exempt. I think 11 other states have already done this. I think that also that, the Constitution says that gold and silver are ways to pay our legal tender and repayable for debt. It's a good hedge against inflation. Dollar goes down, they go up, and just the opposite. When the one goes up, the other goes down, and it's just a good way of treating it as what it is intended for, which is currency. And so this bill simply gets us in line. I have given you all a handout. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them or bring somebody from the Sound Money Defense League up here that would be able to answer them.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So my concern is it's not for the Sound Money League; it's for somebody from LSA. Because set my bill aside, but right now I'm looking at where we've got the income is excluded. Okay, that's fine, but it looks like we're allowing the losses. I'm fine with allowing it to be neutral, but I need somebody from LSA or fiscal office to answer that.
Who's the gentleman here we have?
This is JP from the Sound Money Defense League, and I know.
Oh, okay.
And I'll be
All right.
glad to. I brought him up here, stand by, but I'll be glad to make sure that we're covered to make sure it's neutral on the gains and losses.
All right. Who got LSA? So who did you want to hear from?
Well, that's what they just said. 345.
Thank you.
So what? No, I go back to, and I hadn't read this all word for word and tracked it out. I mean, I'm looking at the red lines like most people, but if I go back to page 6, starting on 164, it says no deductions shall be allowed for any losses, expenses, or interest, yada yada. Otherwise, there shall be allowed as deductions, and then it starts a whole list of which this is in. So maybe there's something in between that I've missed, but it looks like they're double dipping. But the way I read it, it says they're allowed.
I'd call attention to the fiscal note that we have on it. In the middle portion of the fiscal note, it says this bill 297 could decrease receipts to the ETF beginning fiscal year 26 by an undetermined amount, depending on the amount of losses and gains derived from the exchanges.
Which would have been potential revenue because we're taking those losses and gains out.
Exactly.
Thanks a lot, Nelson.
Yep.
Take our money.
Colvin, you have a question
That was the same thing, just on the, I
on
think it,
fiscal note?
yeah, for me,
Okay.
just personally, if, generally we'll have something in here.
All right.
And
Any other questions or comments?
I'll work on trying to get that LSA. I know that Iowa said it would be about 400,000 to them. Not comparable state. I can't tell you what their population is or their purchase of gold or loss, but I can get that information.
Do we have any motion?
I have a question.
A question? Go ahead.
What would be the theory about allowing one but not the other? I mean, typically, if it goes up, your tax goes down, you get a break. Why would this be different? What's the theory behind that?
Theory behind it having one and not the other.
Yeah.
As far as a gain or loss, just to make it net neutral. And it's like any other thing that would be, subject to a hedge against inflation in good times or bad times, just the opposite. So I would say that maybe I had that backwards, but it would be just a way to safe harbor your money and still have secure. They always say one golden eagle could buy a suit, and that's remained a good suit, and that's been since the 20s and 30s all the way today. That's the price of a upper level suit, and it's just been a steady currency as other currencies throughout the world and the U.S. have fluctuated. It's been steady throughout that time period.
So not allowing or not considering a loss,
Right.
in your opinion and others, leads to stability in the economic system? Is that?
Yes, I mean, especially when you think of way your Congress has the way to change the tax code anytime you want as far as gains or losses. I think it would take that out of the should I sell based on what Washington does, or should we hang on to it based on what we feel we have that ability to hold that actual precious metal in your hand, or you have it in your safety deposit box. It's a little different than a dollar when you have it in your pocket and you don't know what that thing's going to be worth against the worldwide currency the next day. I mean, I just think it's a solid investment worldwide.
And no doubt about a solid investment. And anyway, I might could be convinced. I'm going to support the bill today in committee. I got to work through some of that in my mind, but I might be convinced of that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Senator Melson, I'm going to have a problem with your bill. So I'm going to be against it today and against it on the floor. It seems like it's not fair for the rest of us. But maybe I don't understand it. We'll have to just see. But I got to do more homework.
And the reason it wouldn't be considered, well, I'll talk to you later about
Yeah.
it. Why it wouldn't be fair.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you. Just really quick, because I know we have a really long agenda today. I do have something in front of me that is something in support of this bill from the Sound Money Defense League. And I know the gentleman had mentioned someone was here. I just want to know a little bit more about, like, who is this? Like, what's the purpose? Maybe that can help me understand the legislation a little bit better if I kind of understood what their underlying goal is.
Would you be entertaining meeting after and discussing this with them, or you want to just
Well, we
continue
getting ready
the
to take a
discussion?
vote on the bill.
Well, that's true.
Could he speak for 2 minutes, Mr. Chairman?
Say again?
Could the person speak for 2 minutes here?
2 minutes, certainly.
Hi, I will keep it under 2 minutes. Thank you. My name is JP Cortez. I'm the executive director of the Sound Money Defense League. We're a national nonpartisan group that works to remonetize gold and silver today at a time of high inflation. So the idea is to be able to use gold and silver as money, as was constitutionally prescribed in Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution. Alabama has already eliminated the the sales tax when people buy gold and silver, but there's still a capital gains tax when you sell it if there's a gain, and that makes it unusable as money. So the idea is at a time of high inflation where people are being locked out of home ownership, for example, which is an asset that people have used to build or sustain their wealth, Americans and Alabamans all over are locked over that out of that as an asset. And gold and silver is something that's still affordable that people can use to protect their savings and their wealth. So that is the idea, to remonetize gold and silver nationwide. This bill in particular, we've got about 10 states that are working on this legislation. 11 have already passed it. We're on the schedule. I'm sorry, 11 have already passed it. We're on the schedule tomorrow in Nebraska. That's expected to pass out of their legislature tomorrow, becoming the 12th.
Oh.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Senator Orr.
Mr. Chairman, seeing that this is sales tax and I don't see any general fund impact, I'd request the chairman, and if you need a motion, that maybe you recommit over to ETF, and I will work with the sponsor and maybe have it on the agenda next week. We'll have to meet, or we can carry it over, or we can vote it. I'll leave it to the chairman, but I think it ought to be in the
I think there's a good
F&T
deal. I
committee.
think there's a good deal of concern and questions on this. I don't want to kill the bill, so if I may, I'm going to move that we carry this over, and we'll take a look at getting this recommitted today. If we, oh, I can't do it, but we can do it by tomorrow, and get this recommitted and get this into ETF. Motion to carry over. All in favor? Any opposed?
Nay.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. I'll talk to the Grim Reaper about this getting on his schedule.
Now let's move back up to SB 265. Yep, okay. Now, for your information, everybody, SB 265 is here with Senator Coleman Madison. We also have further down HB 352, which is the last bill on this agenda. That is the companion bill. And I think we have a substitute for 265 to make it a true companion to 352. Is that exactly where we are?
Yeah, yes.
All right, so
Okay.
we have the substitute motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're on the substitute, and we're on the substitute and SB 265. Any questions dealing with SB 265, juvenile courts? Move for passage. Any objection to using can I do this, previously counted roll? No objection to using the previously counted long roll? All right, then we'll accept that. And SB 265 given a favorable report. If we don't mind, if there's any objection, if I bring up HB 352, the companion bill on that. We got a motion for favorable. Second, all in, any objection using previous roll?
Nope.
No objection? All right. HB 352 is favorably reported out. We've done Senator Melson's.
Thank you.
Call the next bill.
SB 315, Senator Singleton.
Once you pass this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee. This is a bill, and I'm not asking for any money today, okay? Thank you, today. This legislature, the legislature passed the Rural Jobs Act in 2021, which was HB 73. The bill allocated $25 million to the federal and state small business capital initiative fund as a program. But unfortunately, during that time, the Treasury changed their rules and made a determination that the SSBCI funds may not be used for this purpose.
This was federal funds that we were talking about.
Yes, sir.
Correct? Yes, sir.
This bill simply removes all references to the SSBCI program from the current law and gives the legislature authority to appropriate funds to the program. And again, we're not asking for an appropriation. The whole purpose for this Rural Jobs Act is to generate capital to be to help small business in rural, impoverished areas of the state and establish a pool of capital up to $50 million that could be used to help small business in economically depressed areas. All capital, all of the capital must be used in rural impoverished communities to ensure capital distribution that is distributed equally across at least 50% invested in small business in rural communities with 50,000 residents or fewer, and at least 25% of it must be invested in business in the opportunity zones. Separately of the total funds.
We have a motion for passage. We have a second.
Thank you.
Any objection to using previous role? No objection? Bill's given a favorable report. Very
Thank
good
you.
rendition, Senator.
Thank you, sir. I'll be back to you again for money.
All right. Call the next bill.
SB 319, Senator Albright.
Wait a minute. What am I doing here?
You're telling agencies not to settle something if they don't have the money, so that's why I move favorable.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Any objection using previous role?
This is a really good bill, Mr. Chairman.
I'm glad you feel that way.
I really do.
Yeah, well, finally we agree. Bill's given a favorable report. Thank you. HB 54. Representative Bedsole, is someone here for? Oh, yes, Senator Hovey. Okay.
Representative Bedsole's a little taller and better looking, but you'll have to deal with me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Your personality is much more outstanding, though. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. This is a bill that adds volunteer firefighters to current state statute that provides a death benefit to paid firefighters, outlining 4 different criteria that would make them eligible for such.
Have we passed this in the Senate version of this yet?
No, sir.
We have not?
No.
How's, is there a question?
I was here a few weeks ago.
Oh, is that right?
Right.
Did we pass this then?
You did not. We carried it over, so here I am again. Thanks for bringing that back up.
You can thank the senators to my left.
I know. I wasn't gonna mention it.
No changes, no substitutes, no.
No changes. There's some questions about perhaps instead of approaching it this way, I think have some insurance. Want to establish an insurance policy.
Correct.
I have a representative from the volunteer firefighters that might be able to answer some of those questions. So I would defer to him if those questions are still unanswered.
There are some questions that continue here, and I have discussed with folks about a potential amendment or so on this, but I also know that we're getting close to the end of things, and I wanted to get this moving along is one of the reasons we brought this in.
Mr. Pegues is available.
Sure.
Good morning.
Good morning. The senator has a question on the insurance policy.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I was wondering why not have an individual insurance policy on each one of these people, because the issue that I have is that we pass these bills and then the money is not there. At least this would be assured that you will be covered for a certain amount of money and it would be paid out.
There is a program that is in place now, bill passed in 2019, that provides for paid firefighters to be, their employer has to carry a cancer policy on them. So if they are diagnosed with cancer, they get a benefit. Volunteers are allowed to participate in that program. It's not required because a lot of volunteer departments would not be able to afford the money. What this bill does, basically, this is the last step that brings volunteer firefighters who serve this state for free in line with line of duty death benefits in case they are diagnosed and die of cancer because of their service as a volunteer firefighter. Paid firefighters, it is presumptive
We
And
understand that. My question is that where does the money come from, and how do we know that it is going to be there when they need it? I think
over
we're on
the
the same page.
yeah,
I'm
over
just
the years, Board of Adjustments have been given the money to pay these benefits. It comes out of the same pot that the gentleman from Montgomery County, the law enforcement officer that died last week, the same pot that his death benefit will come from, the same pot that the paid will. Like I said, this is the last step to bring cancer into the volunteers. We estimate one, maybe two per year. And this also is restricted because of the requirements in the bill. Right now, there's only about 650 volunteers that would be able to participate in this because you have to be a certified volunteer. And to get that certification, you have to pass a physical like the paid people do. When they're employed, they have to pass a physical to show that they're eligible, they don't have cancer. The volunteer has to pass a physical to get their certification. So it's not like we're opening this up to 20,000 people tomorrow. It's
I understand, that's not the issue. Is there a fiscal note on this? We're on the same page. I s-
doing a
I support the bill, but I'm still not understanding where are we getting the money from, and I haven't seen a fiscal note if there is one. Huh?
It's,
You know,
it's,
what's
it's
the
there.
impact on
It
it?
states that, um, beginning in fiscal year 2025, the increase obligations of $148,550 for each state death benefit to a surviving beneficiary. And it's already been mentioned, the anticipation there is 1 to 2 per year. Is that accurate?
that is correct, sir.
Okay, so we are fine as far as the money's being there.
Based
Then
on those estimates, yes.
okay, all right, we're on
Uh,
the same page. I just want to make sure. I'm trying to guarantee that the money is there and that we don't commit to something and then something
Yes,
happens
and
we
we
can't.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we have been worked on other changes and things, and I think you presented something, but we need to
We're
work
going to
out some
hold up on that
details.
right now.
Yeah, but we are going to make changes before we get this to the House, or if we get it to the floor. Senator Coleman, Senator
Thank
Patterson.
you. Thank you. I just wanted to know where the definition for cancer came from that's in the bill. I just want to make sure if we're going to pass it, and I'm very supportive of what you all are attempting to do, and just making sure that this is actually a comprehensive list, because I just don't know.
I
So I-
believe it's the same list that was used in 2019 when we presented the bill that provided for the cancer policy for the paid, and that way we're keeping everything on an equal.
Well, where
Right.
does it come from? Is that something that comes from the medical association, or where did that definition come?
It's research from my understanding, and I'm retired 30 years from Birmingham. Uh, there are certain cancers that a firefighter is more inclined to be diagnosed with because of their exposure to carcinogens. So I can't say exactly where this list came from, but it's through research, legislation from other states that have passed things similar, and this is just sort of an accepted list.
Thank you for that further explanation.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion? We have a motion? Second? We have a motion and a second. Any objection to using previous role? No objection? Bill's given a favorable report. Steve, we'll get together and get the other changes we need to worked out before we get to the floor, okay? Call the next bill.
HB 73 by Representative Pettis.
Good to see you,
Thank you.
Representative Pettis.
Good to see you too.
Real estate property tax assessment.
Yes,
Yours?
yes, sir. Under existing law, there is no limit on increase in excess value of real property. This bill will provide for a cap on real property tax assessed under certain conditions.
And the cap is what, 7%?
7 and 7. Yes, sir.
7% in 7 years?
Now, 7% on residential and 7% on commercial.
Okay. We have a motion?
May I ask a question?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
If you're ready?
Yes, sir, I'm ready for
Okay.
you.
Mr. Pettis, this is maybe not pertaining as much to your bill, but it's just to make sure that myself and others sitting here, we represent a lot of rural counties and expense that they may incur and that kind of thing. I understand as far as under state law, the any upgrades that need to be made as far as software, the state will have to pay that. My concern is the Department of Revenue, because it does not specifically state that, and if they're here, we can ask. But my question is, as far as training is concerned, is that going to be addressed without an expense to these counties?
Yes, ma'am, I saw you getting ready. Go ahead.
Cameron Clark with the department. Yes, sir. Expenses like these come out of the mapping and appraisal budget that is handled by the department. But any training associated that would be absorbed and done by the department. We
And
provide-
you're going to take the lead on there. They're not going to have to call you to do that. Is that
That's
correct?
Yes, sir. We put out administrative rules and go through the process and work with the counties to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Okay. Like I said, Representative, this is not against your bill. I just want to make sure that my rural counties are going to be taken care of, and they're not going to have to be trying to find somebody to send them a notice. Okay? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator
Yes,
Old
question.
Madison, yes.
can someone define class 2 and 3 properties so I'll have a better understanding of exactly which properties we're talking about?
If I may, Class 2 properties would be commercial properties, and Class 3 would be your house and agricultural property. So residential property that is not rented out to others. So if it's a rental house, if you've got an Airbnb, it's going to be Class 2, it's going to be commercial property, taxed at 20%, whereas residential will be. And so basically, it's double the tax that you would have for agricultural and residential.
Same way you get for homestead exemptions, but not on.
Any other questions? Senator,
Representative, I appreciate this bill having just gotten tax notices of a property that increased over 100% and several that were over 33%. I greatly appreciate your efforts on this behalf.
Mine went up 40.
did you have something?
I do.
Go
I
ahead.
do. I guess my trepidation is that this is a statewide piece of legislation. So even if in my own county, we wanted to do something else, we would not be able to do anything over what the cap is, 7%?
Yes, ma'am.
And I guess it makes me think about when we were doing all of that occupational tax legislation, when we had an occupational tax in our county, and then there was this whole statewide bill that impacted us when we didn't want it to impact us. I think that's just kind of a little bit of my concern, and if this is going to end up costing some of our counties money. So maybe I want to know where the County Commission Association is on the bill.
They're neutral or not opposed is my understanding.
Well, he's there.
I'll let him.
He's there.
Mr. Brasfield, could you clarify your stance on this fine piece of legislation?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think you all know that this piece of legislation has gone through a great deal of negotiation and discussion and back and forth. One of the key elements in this bill for us is the 3-year sunset provision that is in the bill and the creation of dialogue between the Department of Revenue and an already established reappraisal task force to come back and address the issues that the senator has mentioned and that the representative has mentioned, and that some issues I think that are behind the comments perhaps of Senator Price, to make sure that the communication and that the process works correctly at the local level. We appreciate everyone working on getting us to a place where we can move forward without. If you remember, we had a public hearing on the Senate version, and this place was crowded, and you had to cut off testimony. There's no one
only
here
cut yours off,
testifying
I think.
today. Well, everyone was upset because I didn't get to talk that
I
day.
understand.
And so, but there's no one here to testify against this bill, and we appreciate the work very much.
Thank you.
So, but are you all for this bill?
Are you all for this bill? Well, there's no one opposing this legislation, and we are certainly not against this legislation and are grateful for the changes that have been made. Directly to your question, we really couldn't. I don't know how we have a cap that differs from county to county unless we set up some statewide process to do that. And that from a constitutional standpoint.
Thank
Now
you.
I'm practicing law without a license.
I was going to say that very political answer there.
Me?
Yes.
Senator Elliott.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Representative Pettis, I just wanted to commend you. This is a big lift, and you've had a lot of opposition early on. I think principally I appreciate where you're coming from. Practically, the implementation is sticky sometimes, but you have navigated that well. You have nobody in opposition to your bill, and as someone who often has people in opposition to their legislation, I just wanted to commend you for your work on this. You've navigated it well, and at the appropriate time, I would move favorable report.
Senator, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too want to commend you for the work you put in on it, but if I'm recalling correctly, the changes that have been made as the numbers have gone up.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct. Mine started out at 3 and 5, and we're at 7 and 7. And we also added, I had no sunset. We have a 3-year sunset. TIFs were not included in this, and we've also took out the TIFs. The larger municipalities that use the TIF, they're also not covered under the cap. That was the league. That was from the league, and then the study commission, which they'll do a report. That's also from the county commission.
We have a motion. Senator Elliott,
you.
do we have a second? We have a second. Before we take the vote, I will say, only in government can you have an increase considered a cut. Any objection to using previous roll? We have an objection. Let's call a roll.
Senator Albritton?
Aye.
Senator Chambliss? Senator Beasley? Senator Coleman? Senator Coleman Madison? Senator Elliott?
Yes.
Senator Gavan? Senator Jones? Senator Kelly? Senator Livingston? Senator Orr? Senator Price? Senator Shonut? Senator Stewart? Senator Stutz? Senator Weaver?
Bill is given a favorable report. Thank you. Call the next bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Representative Pettis.
HB 212, Representative Keel.
Representative Keel, are you here?
Mr. Chairman, I think he had to leave, and I'll be happy to carry this bill forward.
All right. Tell us about HB 212, Senator.
It is simply a bill to streamline the process of attachment or garnishment of retirement system funds, and there are only 2 changes made in what is current law, and line 53 and 54, and then line 111 and 112, and all it does is strike the sentence that this case has been assigned to the district attorney's restitution recovery division.
We've seen this one before, haven't we? We have a
It
motion.
takes the district attorneys out of the picture.
We have a motion and a second. Any oh, let's take a long roll. Yeah.
Senator Albritton?
Aye.
Senator Chambliss? Senator Beasley? Senator Coleman? Senator Coleman Madison? Senator Elliott? Senator Gavan? Senator Jones? Senator Kelly? Senator Livingston? Senator Orr? Senator Price? Senator Shonut? Senator Stewart? Senator Stutz?
Aye.
Senator Weaver?
We've got a favorable report. Thank you. Let's call the next bill.
HB 220, Representative Ellis.
Senator Gudger. You here for Representative Ellis?
I am. I'm representing him today. He had another meeting, so I have this same companion bill that's already passed.
This is
Senate.
the Airbnb, correct?
Airbnb, VRBO, you're correct.
We have a motion for favorable. We have a second. Any objection to previous roll? No objection. Bill's given a favorable report. Thank you.
It's been wonderful doing business with you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Are you going to stand in for Representative Ellis on 256?
I think I've got that one.
That is not my area of expertise.
Oh, okay.
Please don't hold it against Representative Ellis.
No, he has his own troubles with me. But Senator Elliott.
So, Mr. Chairman, and there's a fiscal note that I think is worth looking at on this one, if you will. This deals with reimbursement for our sheriffs that are traveling outside of the state in order to retrieve a felon. We haven't changed this reimbursement amount since 1957, which is a little while ago.
Just like yesterday.
Yeah, yes, sir. And so the result of that is that sheriffs don't go get these folks and this is for felons, state crimes, right? And so what happens is the state comptroller ends up hiring private folks to go get these felons. The fiscal note notes at the very bottom at the end of, let's see, in fiscal year 2023, about $1.8 million was paid for the state general fund for extradition costs. So what this does is it changes the reimbursement rate from a whopping 10 cents a mile to the standard IRS rate of 65.5 cents a mile, and the daily rate from $8 a day to $100 a day. And the hope is that we will save money by sending our own sheriffs out there to go get these own felons instead of hiring that out to private folks.
Any questions? We have a motion for favorable and a second. Any objection using previous roll?
I have a question,
Question,
if I
yes,
may.
ma'am.
Just to clarify, $100 a day, is that, for instance, if you have more than one person going out a different place to pick up, so it's just $100 a day regardless of, is that what I'm understanding?
So this is for travel, just like your travel. If you're overnight, I would assume, or $100 a day if you're out.
Is that per person?
Yes, ma'am. And Randy Hillman's here if you'd like to ask him a little more.
I just want to know if they're just going down the street.
Yeah,
Takes
no,
them
ma'am, this is
15 minutes.
out of state.
Huh?
Mr. Chairman, if you'd allow Mr. Hillman to answer that question, he may be better able to do that than Representative Ellis's stand-in here.
Mr. Hillman?
That is to help reimburse these guys for food and expenses and that kind of thing. Generally, when you go, especially on a violent felon or somebody who is running a long way, you'll send at least 2 people to go. That way, if one guy gets sick, whatever, you've got a second person there with him. So the $100 a day would be
Out of state? Out of state, in state, or doesn't matter?
Most of these people, if they are in state, you can shift them between county jails and that kind of thing. There are some in state, but the vast majority of these are going out of state, especially on your border counties. For example, Lee County had 200 to 300 extraditions last year. Mobile County had about that same. Madison County, for example, they cannot afford to go get somebody at these rates if they were in Tennessee or what have you. So the comptroller then has to hire some private company who is charging more than what these rates would be. The comptroller relayed to us that this would help save them money and said, quote, I'm surprised that you guys haven't touched this before now.
I was just wondering, if there was a distance requirement.
No, ma'am.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. Any objection to previous roll? No objection. Bill's given a favorable. Thank you. Call the next bill.
HB 259.
259, and ladies and Representative Wood, and we are passing out, I think, an amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to offer the amendment at the appropriate time.
Oh, so you're familiar with the amendment? All right. Representative Wood, tell us about your bill.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members. HB 259 is a bill that would require the judge of probate of each county to conduct a post-election audit after every county or statewide general election to determine the accuracy of the previous information that was given. This bill would require the judge of probate to meet the second Friday after the election at noon with the canvassing board to decide where the audit was going to be held. The canvassing board randomly selects the precinct. There's only one precinct per county. It excludes provisional and absentee ballots. It's not subject to any contest, so it's after 30 days. So if there's any race that's in the middle of a contest and it's randomly selected, they would select another race. Okay. They
What's
can
it-
add, I'm sorry, yes.
No, you have an amendment coming forward. Can you tell us what that amendment's going to be? Is that all right?
Yes, sir. I'm going to allow you.
Yes. Thank you, Representative Wood, for this opportunity to offer a friendly amendment. What this amendment does is it allows for the nomination of a candidate in a primary or general election to be finalized by the prospective state executive committee no longer than 71 days, and that was previously 76 days. It only moves it up 5 days. Any amendment to the certification of a candidate by a state executive committee must be filed with the probate or the Secretary of State. And the Secretary of State, no longer than the 69 days, it was previously 74 days before the general election, and they must certify to the judge of probate of each county in the state.
If I might, Representative Wood, the senator says this is a friendly amendment. I don't doubt his word. How friendly is it?
Well, I think since this is an election bill, I think that I could view it as friendly.
Okay.
I have a question real quick.
Yes, sir.
If I may. What's the reason for the 71 and 76 to 71 days?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Checking.
Okay. With that, we're on the amendment. Do we have a motion?
So move.
We have a motion and a second. Any objection to using previous roll for adoption of the amendment? Then the amendment stands adopted. Okay, now we're back on the bill. Representative Wood, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I have some problems with the bill as far as the cost is concerned.
Okay.
Who's going to pay for it?
Okay.
I've gotten several calls from probate judges that is fussing at me because they want the money to pay for this, but he doesn't know how much it's going to cost. Is there anything in this bill dealing with that issue?
Yes, sir. First of all, we had a lot of discussion with probate judges across the state and with associations. The ACCA was very firm that each county would be reimbursed totally for any of their expenses. The original fiscal note that we looked at was for manual tabulation, and we figured if we had to get an inspector and 3 counters, and we counted for 3 days, it could cost around $35,000. Now, after working with the probate judges, they do have the option to use a clean tabulator to recount the votes so that they don't have to do the manual. They have the option, and that is something that they wanted. And with that option, that amount goes way down. But all the counties will be fully funded, and it was placed in the bill, and the Secretary of State agreed to that language.
Okay, they agreed, the Secretary of State agreed to fund the cost?
The language states that they will be reimbursed as for any election expenses,
whom?
just like they are.
By whom?
The state, the comptroller.
That's what I thought I was
Yes, sir.
hearing. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I thought I was hearing. Would you have an objection to, because in doing this money's being in November, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have any elections between now and November?
Any special elections?
Any elections, period? Because
None
this
that I'm aware of, sir.
municipals, don't
Chairman.
we? Does that
That's
fall into
25.
play?
Municipals are, this one, okay.
Mm-hmm. My point there is that this becomes effective immediately, and this will affect the budget that we're in at the end of this budget year, and it will be at the beginning of the next fiscal year.
This bill is
coming
for
in.
general and countywide elections, for state and general, state and countywide elections.
Would you
not
have an
municipal.
objection? Would you have an objection before we take this to the floor to looking at changing the effective date?
What would you like to change it to? Chair?
January 1st of 25.
I don't have an objection with that.
Yes, ma'am.
If you make it effective January 1st of 25,
Yes, ma'am.
the whole amendment that
Okay.
that the gentleman just added, it will make it null and void.
It
and
may
need
be,
this
but we
ready
have
for-
that may be, but we already have the bill already being passed through the other. So I'm not trying to kill that part, but I am trying to make sure we get this resolved.
I just think and this is just whatever the chairman decides, I think that this was an opportunity for us to work it a couple of ways. This bill right here is farther along in the process. So I think that was the thinking of adding this amendment here on this piece of legislation. I just thought I was offering it, but this is the piece of, I think that's the reason why. And I'm sorry for stumbling over my words, but
We follow
that
you.
kind of threw me a little bit when you wanted to change the date.
Good catch, though. Senator?
Thank you. And I did support Senator Coleman's bill this morning on changing the date, which, tees in with the amendment that was made here today. So my comments are not tied to that. In fact, if I could wave a magic wand, I'd rather just substitute that for this entire bill and let's move it along because it's further along the process. I simply don't see where, I can't look at an election across Alabama and go, gee, I didn't think that person won. I know there's people that want to talk about, the things going on with the ballot box. I just don't see it, so I can't support it.
There's been concerns from the probates that I won't say concerns. Some of them I would say just out and out fear about what this may devolve into. So I'm open for further discussion on this. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a firm believer that honest government starts with honest elections, and I've had some bills to that effect. So I'm one that leans towards support because we need to know that we have honest elections. And again, I don't think it's a problem in this state either. I agree with you, but there's a lot of things that we can do to continue that assurance. I am concerned and have heard from my locals about the burden that it does place on them at the local level and that sort of thing. It sounds like the cost of that burden is taken care of in the bill, maybe not in the budget. But so anyway, I think I have some of the same thoughts that you do. I don't necessarily want to kill the fix to the amendment, but maybe there's a way that the bill can be effective, but then this issue, the count starts at a date certain. I think there's a way to work through that. So I'd be willing to work with you to get all of that worked
Figure
out.
that out. Okay. What's the feeling of this body? Do you want to move this along and with the opportunity of working before it gets to the floor, or do you want to carry it over and wait till later? We have a motion for an adoption. We have a second. Okay. Any objection to a long roll? Correction. Let's go ahead and take the. Any objection to the previous roll? Say again. Do we want to do a long? All right. No. All right. Bill's given a favorable report. We'll work on it and see what we can get done.
Thank you,
Okay?
Mr. Chairman and body.
Thank you. Appreciate the body's patience on that. Call the next bill.
HB 274, Representative Lee.
Representative Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee.
Now, this is also a bill that we've also sent up to y'all, I think.
Could be.
Okay? But we made some changes in it that was more cost-friendly. Do you know of any?
I'm not aware of any changes.
Not of any changes?
No.
All right.
What were the changes?
Changes in the amounts, reduce some of the amounts. Anybody remember those?
Well, on this one is from 225 to 325.
Correct, exactly. And I think ours were, I think 275 or 3. A quarter, yeah, that incremental, that's right, yeah. Would you have an objection to us making yours look just like ours?
I have no objection.
So
I think it's low, but I have no objection.
I will take that as a compliment. Uh, but anyway, I would, then let's go ahead and move this along, and let's see what we can do to adjust that and work with you, Representative Lee, to get that okayed out, all right?
That works. Thank you.
Motion and second. Any objection to previous roll? Okay. You want a yes? Okay. Representative Lee, you've got 294. Go ahead with the cost of living increases. Tell us about that.
Thank you. Many of you are aware of the omnibus bill payment that's in your local area in the counties. If you've been here very long, you've seen bills come across the floor on the House and the Senate of adjusting sheriff's bill, probate judges, those type people that are taking over an office that's been held by the previous person for anywhere from 12 to 15, 16 years. Well, over those years, they have, just to give you an example, they may have started at $75,000. Well, over the years, with getting increases they're paid today when they left office, maybe 110 or 115. Well, when the new person's elected today, they have to go back to the 75. And what this does, it allows them to step in exactly what the previous person was when they left. Say it was 115, the new person walks in at 115,000.
Does that affect state general fund at all?
Not at all. This is all county.
Good answer.
Mr. Chairman, I move favorable report.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any objection to previous roll? Bill's given a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, members.
Call the next bill.
HB 309, Representative Shaver.
Representative Shaver, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm great. Good to see you.
So good to see you all.
Tell us about your bill.
HB 309 provides paid parental leave for the birth of or adoption of a child aged 3 and under for state employees. You know, we've all been hearing about our low labor participation rate and how hard it is for people to hire employees in the state of Alabama. It's no different. In fact, the governor commissioned a study group led by Treasurer Boozer to make recommendations on how to better recruit, retain, and supervise state employees to deal with our turnover rate, which is at a 2-decade high of over 15%. And so this was the first recommendation in that study group's report, is to offer paid parental leave.
Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'll move favorable, but I also see that there's an amendment here. Do you know about the amendment?
I
or
do.
Explain the amendment.
I do. Mr. Chairman, do you want me to explain?
Certainly, if you like.
I had discussions with the chairman about some ways to make the bill get passed. And so, so I agreed to lower the time of paid parental leave from 8 weeks to 6 weeks, and to change the language so that it applies to the mother and for the birth of a child, and a primary caregiver in the case of adoption. So that is the amendment.
And if I might, this amendment also, we involve personnel department and also other folks involved. So this is, I think, a friendly amendment.
It is. So I guess.
So this removes the father.
It does.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank whoever brought this amendment. And I did not walk to school in the snow uphill both ways or anything like that, but I did. My wife had 6 kids, and I took off a little bit extra when I had a couple of NICU, but other than that, I mean, it was about 3 days and back to work. And I tell you what, this current generation we've got that thinks the men need to have 6 weeks off or 8 or 12, I can't accept. We ain't the one delivering the baby. Our body's not repairing. So I support the amendment and would move for its adoption.
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Senator Stewart.
We are dealing with the advent of postpartum. Women are really struggling and they feel like they're alone. We're seeing increased suicides with mothers. I know men may not have delivered the babies, but they need to be there. If you're a husband or a dad, as someone who is going through family planning, I think this is a very worthwhile bill as is. And I would encourage my colleagues to vote against this amendment that cuts out fathers and parents.
Thank you. I think we have a motion on the amendment. We have a second on the amendment. Let's take a long roll and see how we do on the amendment.
May I ask one question just for clarification?
Certainly.
It just said only one parent is eligible for paid leave, but it didn't say, I mean, couldn't it be the father as well?
Well, the primary purpose for giving a birth to a child is
Yeah,
for
we understand
health
that.
and healing. In the case of adoption, it's only one parent.
Okay. Okay.
Call the long roll.
Senator Albritton,
Aye. This on the amendment.
Senator Chambliss,
No.
Senator Beasley, Senator Coleman, Senator Coleman Madison, Senator Elliott,
Aye.
Senator Gavan, Senator Jones, Senator Kelly, Senator Livingston, Senator Orr, Senator Price, Senator Shonut, Senator Stewart, Senator Stutz,
Aye.
Senator Weaver, Senator Coleman Madison.
The amendment passes. We're now on the bill. Any further discussions on the bill?
Move favorable report.
We have a motion. We have a second. Let's take a long roll count.
Senator Albritton,
Aye.
Senator Chambliss,
Aye.
Senator Beasley, Senator Coleman, Senator Coleman Madison, Senator Elliott,
Aye.
Senator Gavan, Senator Jones, Senator Kelly, Senator Livingston, Senator Orr, Senator Price, Senator Shonut, Senator Stewart, Senator Stutz,
Aye.
Senator Weaver.
Bill's given a favorable report. Thank you. Thank you, Representative
Thank you,
Wood.
Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate
If
your
I
patience.
may, I would like to inform the committee that this now leaves Mississippi to stand alone with all the southern states that do not offer paid parental leave. So thank y'all.
Bill, call the, next bill.
HB 324, Representative Reynolds.
This bill is a recurring matter that we've had before. I carried this bill on the floor of the Senate recently. This is the Emergency Medical Transport Providers Tax. It's a renewal, advancing that we already have it. It's already but it will expire in July. This is an extension of 1 year of that. We have a motion and a second. Any objection to previous roll? No objection. Bill's given a favorable report. That concludes our agenda. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.